that's a.
When you know the answer to all these questions, Avery, why are you
ChatGPT?
asking folks these answers?
And my phone's at 3%.
Oh, okay. I see.
Obviously, any Muslim knows.
It's all good though. We appreciate y'all stopping by and everything though. Y'all be cool. Be safe for today.
Always,
right?
you too.
Yeah,
Likewise.
Yeah.
Hey, Avery, how are you?
Oh, pretty good. What's your name?
Safe, Yusuf.
Yusuf. Nice to meet you, Yusuf.
Nice to meet you. When you know the answers to all these questions, why are you asking folks these questions?
For these?
Yeah.
Well, one, everybody has a different answer for the why you're a Muslim, and then who wrote the Quran. Actually, that one actually is a mystery.
No,
we
it's
want to
not.
make sure that they have a right answer.
Yeah.
Everybody has an answer.
Gotta have like
You
proof.
gonna educate them?
Sorry?
You gonna educate
Of
them?
course.
Yes. Let's see.
That's what we're here for, brother.
All right, so pick any question.
I don't need to pick a question. I know the answers, and I know you
Yes,
know
the
the
kids
answers.
even know the 3 years
Because I've seen
baby.
your videos
4,
online,
5
so I
years baby
know
knows the
people
answer.
much more versed than myself have given you the answers to these.
No, they haven't. That's why we still have
Which one
these.
don't you have the answer?
Pick
Okay, so
any.
like for example, for who wrote the Quran,
Yeah, who wrote the Quran?
nobody knows that.
Zayd ibn Thabit and the committee that he put together under the first
He had it
Khalifa.
compiled, yes, but who else wrote it? Because remember, he had to collect it, right? So
Yes,
who wrote
so
those original scripts that he had to collect?
I can give you the list of all of the original writers of
It's
the
in the
Quran. It's not in the Quran.
So
the
why-
Quran doesn't have introductory notes by the author or the anonymous author, like for example Luke, who will come out and say, I saw others writing this, so I felt it also good to write this down. So the Quran, the authors, the hadith, all Islamic writing are kept separate.
You
Right.
want to talk?
Because you asked the
I just want to
question.
make sure that, okay.
No, you asked the question, I'm answering your question, right? So the Islamic literature is very clear when it comes to the documentation of the Quran. It is only what was revealed to the Prophet ﷺ, and he then instructed the writers of the Quran to write it down. Now there's a list of those authorized writers. We know who they are. We know who Zayd ibn Thabit went to go and collect the writings of the Quran from.
Okay.
And then the Hafiz, the memorizers of the Quran, who then he validated all of that with.
Okay.
The compilation of the Quran wasn't just from the writings or the collections of the writings.
Right, some people memorize it and stuff. Yeah, so
Yes,
what our
correct.
question would be is like what you just said, that list of people who Zayd collected the Quran from those scripts from, that material,
Yes.
and then he compiled it. Like,
Yes.
who are these people?
Those are the writers of the Quran. I can give you the list if you want. Do you want the names?
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
you've been given the names.
I actually have never, to this day, I've never been given that, honestly.
I'll get you the video where there's multiple people that's giving you that.
They haven't, nobody has given me that, brother. I'm not lying to you. If somebody has, I would have been like, okay, you know. Because I know of Zayd, I know what he did.
Yeah.
But I don't know who specifically he collected those texts from. Is there a hadith that says this, or would this be more so in
books
top
of history? Books of history.
Books of history?
Yeah. The hadith is, as you know, it's just the sayings of the Prophet. So the books of history is collected in Sirah. And it's not just the Sirah of the Prophet Muhammad, but it's the Sirah of Islam, because you'll find Sirah of the Khalifs after the Prophet Muhammad's passing.
How would you know? Because there's a seerah by Ibn Ashaq, right? That's kind of popular, but I hear that there's some controversy with that one. How do you know which seerah, I guess, you can go by fully?
Yeah, that's the beauty of Islam, is because we've got many writers of Sirah, and they tell us their methodology. Unlike the Gospels, where the methodology, the author remains unknown.
No, it
the
is
four main
known. What do you
Gospels.
mean?
Who wrote Matthew?
Matthew did.
There's no Christian scholar that agrees with you on that.
Every single one.
Show me one.
In the earliest ones.
Show me one.
Papias,
In the
Irenaeus.
Papias and Irenaeus were amongst the first Christian scholars,
And
church fathers.
And they say Matthew or Matthew.
They say this as being the first people to attribute it to Matthew.
But
they
but
don't.
there might, you
They
asked me
don't.
for any.
They don't claim authorship by Matthew. They were the
Yes,
first
they
ones.
do.
Show me.
Papias?
They were the first ones, and I know you've had this debate with a couple of guys. The Hare Krishnas are in a very joyful spirit.
These are I think Hindus or something like
Yeah,
that.
Hare Krishna, Hindus.
Krishna. Serving Krishna.
They're my train of thought.
You're talking about the first ones to attribute.
Papias and
Yeah.
Irenaeus. They were the first ones to attribute the disciple Matthew to the authorship of the gospel scripture that we know today as
That we have
Matthew.
recorded, yes.
Yes.
So you asked
But
me
there's
for
a
any
difference.
Christian
But there's a
scholars.
difference in terms of saying he's the author. Authorship being attributed to Matthew is different from saying Matthew is the author.
How? What's the difference? If you attribute authorship to Matthew, how's
If
that
you
different?
wrote this, and I know you wrote this,
Yeah.
then I'm attributing this authorship of this pamphlet to you. Someone 150 years after you die finds this, there's no attribution to you,
Yeah.
but they say without evidence that this was written by me, as an example. But there's nothing linking the document, the pamphlet, to me.
Papias
the
doesn't
authors.
come 150 years after me. He was a companion of theirs.
A companion of whose?
I forget exactly who Papias was under, but him, us, we got Ignatius who was under
Papias.
John, Polycarp under John, Irenaeus who was under Polycarp. Under Ignatius, who knew Polycarp. So you have these. All of the church fathers agreed with these people that they.
Papias
they
was born
agreed.
in 60 CE and died 130
Yeah,
AD.
yeah. So he's not. He didn't come 100 some years after the apostles. He lived in their time.
He lived up to 130 AD.
Yes, and so born in 60 AD.
Okay, and
right?
he's
he's still in their lifetime.
And he was a follower of who you said, Papias?
I don't remember exactly. Let's see what.
Let's just check on what Google tells us. Papias, church father. He's an author who lived in 1601. He wrote the exposition of the sayings of the Lord. He wrote in Greek.
I could probably text my friend and ask because he knows this stuff.
Oh yeah, it's good. Very little is known about him apart from what can be iterated from his own writings. He's described as an ancient man who was a hearer of John and a companion of Polycarp.
There you go.
Like Polycarp's disciple Irenaeus.
So a hearer of John and follower of Polycarp, disciple of Polycarp. So he knew John.
John who?
John the Apostle. He knew John, and then also was a companion of Polycarp. So he's a contemporary, and he's saying that Matthew wrote his gospel. All of the early church fathers say that they're all in consensus that Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John wrote their gospels.
No, they're not.
Yes,
and
all
you know
of them.
this.
Every last one of them are in consensus. All the church fathers are in consensus.
I know. What's this guy's name? Bart Ehrman's close friend.
Bart Ehrman? Oh, it's Bruce Metzger?
Bruce Metzger.
Uh-huh.
Dan McLaughlin and Bart Ehrman himself. They're all in agreement.
What?
That Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are anonymous authored.
No. Okay,
Gospels.
so you don't know what they mean by anonymous. When they say anonymous, they mean that they didn't put their names in the original work. So that's what, like, if you're talking about textual criticism, that's what anonymous authorship is. Not that they didn't know who wrote
that's
it.
not what anonymous.
Bruce Metzger affirms that Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John wrote the gospel.
Let's see that.
Bart Ehrman doesn't agree. That's where they disagree with each other.
Let's see that. Bruce Metzger. Authorship of the gospel of Matthew. We obviously can't go to Bart Ehrman for that. Shall we try this one?
I guess so. Wayoflife.org. Probably have to skim through this, huh?
Yeah, I don't have any of the critical text or books of these guys now.
Yada, yada, yada. They're just kind of talking about his career. Just kind of giving a biography of the guy. Let's see. This guy.
That this possibility remains that evidence available to us today remains totally unrepresentative of the distribution of the readings of the God. Metzger presently claimed that some portions of the original scriptures might have been unfinished or lost if any copies had been made of the original. Whether Mark was interrupted Writing, okay, that's the ending of Mark, short or long, da 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 da.
Yeah,
Advocated that Matthew incorporated errors in his royal genealogy. Okay, so he's talking about.
This is more so like a biography of him.
Yeah.
But yeah, he thinks that Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John wrote their gospels. All the church fathers. If you look at all the early church fathers, they're all in consensus on who the
No,
gospel.
you know that's not true.
It is true. There's
No,
not
that's
one
not.
that disagrees.
Okay, I'm going to go on your channel and I'll post you some links
Uh-huh.
where there's varying levels of inconsistency and blatant disagreement.
There's
between
not
the early
one among the church fathers on who authored Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Not one.
Well, I just told you now, Bruce Metzger and these modern scholars use those early church fathers' sources
Uh-huh.
to say that there wasn't
Bruce Metzger doesn't say that.
I'm going to show you. I just don't have the documents here, but in one
Okay.
of the lectures.
All right, so with that, so let's I guess put that to the side then. So
Yeah.
then, if we're talking about authorship, right? Now going back to the Quran with what Zayd collected,
Yeah.
I haven't
And you know,
seen.
the collection,
I haven't seen this.
The collection of what Zayd collected was the secondary source.
Say that again.
What Zayd collected was a secondary source material.
Secondary source material.
Yes, the primary source material was the memorization of the Quran from the Hufaz, from the memorizers of the Quran.
Ooh, see,
Hence,
that's tough.
That's why. I'll tell you why that's
Yeah.
the case. Because his committee, he had a criteria for them to be on that committee. Do you know what that was?
Who chose this committee and
Zayd. Zayd was commissioned to put together the Quran. He was given a task,
Uh-huh.
and he assembled. He was in charge of assembling the committee. Do you know what was?
I don't remember him assembling a committee, Yusuf.
I can show you.
I just remember him going out and collecting the Quran from people who had different parchments, different people who memorized certain verses. Not everybody memorized certain verses. He went to certain people. Like there was this one chapter and verse that he only found with one person. Like other people didn't have it.
Even says on Wikipedia. I don't even have to go to Islamic sources. Zayd was given a task of collecting the Quranic verses from all over Arabia and was the head of the committee, including Ubay ibn Ka'b, which performed this task. The number of people in this committee in some sources are around 25, whereas in others it's around 75.
Regarding, but what's the okay? Let's go to the. Do they have a source for this? Let's see, number 4. Yeah, click that.
What is this?
You mind if I hold this?
So that's
Encyclopedia
probably a
of Islam.
non-Muslim source, but
Yeah.
it's confirming the Muslim narrative that Zayd was in charge of the committee. I'll leave you with this.
I would agree that Zayd was in charge of collecting the Quran, but
Correct.
to say that what he was collecting were secondary sources as to where the memorizers were the primary, I don't know if I would agree with that.
I'll tell you what. You may not agree with it, but this is a historical fact, and I'll get someone who's more knowledgeable than me to give you the information.
Okay.
I know in the past they may have. But one of his key criteria for people being put on this committee was what?
Was
Do you
who?
know- Was what? What? Do you know what that criteria was?
No.
That the person who was put on the committee had to have been one of the commissioned writers of Quran, who were the writers of the Quran for the Prophet, or they were memorizers of the Quran.
Okay.
So you couldn't just be some Tom, Dick, or Harry who said, I've got a parchment with some writing of the Quran on here. You had
Okay.
to have been a memorizer of the Quran or a script writer of it.
And so I hear you, but I would need to. You're good. I would need to see that. You know what I'm saying? I would need to see the hadith source that says that Zayd bin Thabit, very critically picked who he was collecting the Quran from, and he was very selective with that and careful with that. I would need to see that.
The
Because
methodology.
yeah, I would need to see the methodology. I've personally never
You have a
seen
YouTube
that in
channel?
that. Yeah, GodLogic.
GodLogic.
GodLogic. Yes,
I'll
sir.
post for you there's very detailed analysis of the compilation.
Okay.
But they come back to this point.
Okay.
Zayd was head of the committee. It was a thorough process of compiling the Quran
Yeah.
and vetting it with the memorizers of the Quran.
All right, so let me ask you
there
this.
was
then.
unanimous agreement on the end product which he compiled, which remained with the wife
With
of
Hafsa,
the Prophet,
right?
with Hafsa,
So-
and was later given
So
to
the important thing is then what happened after that, right? Because so we see a problem is fixed and solved, right? A lot of the memorizers died off in the Battle of Yamama, so Abu Bakr has Zayd collect the Quran so it doesn't get lost because people are dying in battle.
No,
right?
he doesn't have them collect the Quran. He has them proliferate the Quran based on the standard text, which
What do you
say
mean?
that
What do you mean by
already collects.
proliferate? That's a big word for me.
You have an original pamphlet. Now, instead of making unauthored copies of that pamphlet, you go back to the original pamphlet.
They didn't have
and
that
say-
yet.
They had the original. It was with Hafsa.
No. So the Hafsa manuscript is what they collected, and then they gave that when they passed it. Umar had it, and then Umar gave it to his daughter. That's yeah.
Let's go this.
Look, we can pull this up. So
During the time of Uthman Khalif, so here's the first compilation, right?
yes,
The first
it's Abu Bakr.
compilation is formalizing the Quran. What do we mean by formalizing the Quran? It's taking the disparate copies of partial components of the Quran, verses and surah that were on a variety of documents, plus the memorizers of the Quran, and putting it in the standard codex as we know today. Right? The second standardization which I'm referring to is during the reign of the Caliph Uthman, where Islam had spread, the Battle of Yamama had taken place. He was asked to head up a committee for the second time. A group of companions headed by Hudayfa ibn Yaman, who has been stationed in Iraq, came to Uthman and urged him, save the Muslim Ummah before they differ on the Quran. Because now people were taking Quran from memorizers, from other learned people, writing their own scripts, and they were differing in what they were writing down.
So let me ask you this then. So when it comes to, because this is the first one we're talking about with Abu Bakr,
Yeah.
right? A lot of people are dying in the Battle of Yamama, and so that the Quran is not lost, they have it compiled for the first time.
No.
Yes.
Abu Bakr sent me from the
He said,
yeah, this was the first compilation. Yeah.
so he does this so to basically preserve the Quran, so it doesn't get lost, right?
Yeah.
And so Zayd does it, and then it gets that. So what they collected becomes the standard manuscript that keeps getting passed down.
What they collected does not become the standard manuscript.
Yes, it does.
Listen,
Hold on, let's see if it's in here.
Listen, the artifacts that he collected were written on leather, written on parchment, written on bone, and came from the memorizers. Those parchments.
Look, it's right here. It's
Yeah.
right here. So look, right at the bottom. So then the complete manuscripts of the Quran.
Listen, the word is there in brackets.
Yes.
Can you see that copy?
Yes.
So they made a standard text.
Yes.
Do you agree with that?
Yes.
So it wasn't what was collected.
No, the standard text is what was collected.
It was the contents of what was collected.
So
Do you understand the difference?
let's try to break it down.
Let's say, for example, pieces of Quran is written on all of these pamphlets.
Yep.
Zayd goes around and collects all of these pamphlets. Right?
Yeah.
He doesn't take each pamphlet
And then put it
in
the
a
Quran.
binder and say this is the Quran.
Right.
He takes the contents plus what the memorizers have, creates a new authorized script
Yes.
based on these artifacts.
Okay, yes, I agree.
These artifacts do not become that standard script codex, which was what he compiled.
Right. I
get
see what
what
you're
I'm
saying.
saying?
Yeah. So the contents that's in these scripts,
Is
they put
compiled,
in,
is copied and
got
put
you.
into an authorized
Got you.
codex.
And then this authorized codex gets passed down to Hafsa, right?
Yes, that's
Okay. We're on the same page then. Okay. So it gets passed down to Hafsa, and then in Uthman's time, there's another issue, right? As you said, there's people that have other manuscripts of the Quran. They're differing and about to fight over it and stuff like that. So they say, man, save us and fix this. So what he does is that he has everybody turn in their manuscripts, turn in their copies, whether they're whole Qurans or manuscripts.
Yeah.
He burns them
Partial,
all,
yeah.
and he takes the Hafsa's
He doesn't do
manuscript.
that. He asked that they be destroyed. You didn't have people coming to a big bonfire and throwing their Qurans in, right? These leaders in the field, there was no calling of books. I'm just being accurate with you.
But
Historically
it
accurate.
says he ordered that everybody turn in their Qurans.
Yes, but it didn't come back to him, to Uthman.
So where did they go?
In wherever they were, they got rid of their non-authorized texts and started using the authorized
All right,
texts.
so hold on. Let's check this out really quick. So let's go over to the very next one. So this is the one,
Yeah.
and then let's see here. So Uthman sent a message to Hafsa saying, "Send us the manuscripts of the Quran so that we may compile the Quranic materials in perfect copies
Yes.
and return the manuscripts to you." Hafsa sent it to Uthman. All right. Uthman then ordered Zayd bin Thabit, Abdullah
The second compilation,
Zubair,
yes.
yada yada yada, to make perfect copies, right? Make the
Yes.
manuscripts in perfect
And
copies.
send it out into the empire.
Right, right. All right, he says, in case you disagree with Zayd bin Thabit or on any point in the Quran, then write it in the dialect of the Quraysh.
Yes.
The Quran was revealed in their tongue. They did so, and when they had written many copies, Uthman returned the original manuscripts to Hafsa. Uthman sent to every Muslim province one copy
Yes.
of what they had copied,
Yes.
and ordered that all the other Quranic materials, whether
exactly what I
written in fragmentary
Be destroyed
manuscripts,
where they are. He didn't ask, he didn't
I
summon
understand.
them back.
I understand what you're saying.
to
Yeah.
himself.
So he ordered them to burn the manuscripts that they have,
Correct,
except the manuscripts that's now being sent to
Because
you.
here's the authorized version. You no longer need these unauthorized versions.
Yes,
Get
yes,
rid of
okay.
them.
So now with that being said, we have obviously a central control
Yes.
of the manuscripts of the Quran,
Correct.
the standard manuscript. And one can, if they're on the outside looking in, they can look at this and say, this is a bit suspicious if there's one central power controlling the manuscripts.
I
and
would
then-
understand that coming from a Christian background.
Yeah.
I would understand that because
Okay.
you're looking at it with your Christianic lens.
Not even Christian.
No, no. Look, let's be frank. You could look at it from. I mean, there's only 2 or 3 real religions that talk about historical preservation of their scriptures. It's the Abrahamic faiths. The Hindus don't even claim that their scriptures are historically sound. So when we talk about this, you can only look at it from those 3 lenses. And you being a Christian, me being a Muslim, you're going to take a cut. I'm not defending Islam. I'm looking at what the facts are. The
Okay.
process is meticulously documented. Your guys' process, the Christian process, has recently become uncovered. What do I mean recently become uncovered? We're talking about since the advent of textual criticism, really, where people went into the study of the Bible and the Gospels. Right? And what we've seen is a initially decentralized proliferation of different Gospels, not a Bible, as in the Quran. Right? Later, then the church comes together and decides. One of the church fathers is one of the first ones to name the authorized copies that should be in the New Testament. That is then later, over various ecumenical councils, adopted over time as the reading of the New Testament as we know it today.
But are you talking about the whole New Testament, or are you talking about the gospel?
The bulk of it. No, I'm not talking about the
Okay.
gospel. I'm talking about what we know today as the New Testament.
Okay.
As scripture that the Christians believe in, was not a book called the New Testament in the time of Jesus nor his disciples.
Correct.
Right? The letters of Paul, the Gospels, the other texts are named later on as being the revelation. And over time becomes codified. And we've got the first example of that complete collection in the form of the Codex Sinaiticus and the Codex Vaticanus later on. Right? The point I'm making is very early on we knew the manuscript and recital extent of the Quran. In the early Christian era, we didn't know that.
Whoa. Yusuf.
What I'm saying is, you didn't know that, and you'll agree with me, because what you have in the New Testament today is a filtered, is the outcome of a process of filtration. There was many books which was decided that these aren't revelation. You call them today the Apocrypha. Many Gospels.
They were never considered in the Christian church at all. Never.
In the Christian church, but the early Christians considered them.
These are the churches that are the early Christians. They never
They
considered
are,
them.
you know,
You're talking about Gnostic heretics.
Gnostic heretics.
They're not Christians.
They classified as Gnostic heretics today. They
They were there back then.
They were just followers of Jesus back then.
No, they wasn't.
When was the church? The church in its
The church.
doctrines
Look.
was an evolution. You know this.
No. So look, I can agree that you have there's development of doctrine and ideas and concepts that happens that happens all the time. That's even in Islam, right? But to say that because there's other people that claim to be followers of Christ, who the apostles and the church fathers unanimously disregarded as heretics because they're going against the teachings of the apostles and the teachings of Jesus and the prophets, they're out.
That's the point that I'm making. How do you know what the teachings of the apostles and Jesus were. It's from largely the textual preserve.
Because we have a consistent chain of authorship among the church fathers that unanimously recognize Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John as scripture.
I
The church is
disagree with you there,
dead,
but I
and
don't
the
have
Paul
something
letters
to
of Paul.
prove it to you, so I'm not going to argue that
Okay.
point. Let's say that is the case.
Okay.
So you're claiming authorship. There's a consistent, as you put it,
Yes.
claim of authorship.
Consistent tradition.
You
Yes.
don't attribute. Yeah, it's I like the word you put. It's an attribution of authorship. It's a consistent attribution of authorship.
It's a chain of authorship.
Since the first church father makes that known. But
all of them knew this.
No, not all of them knew this. There
So
was
then
an initial
why is there no
church father.
disagreement?
Because it was adopted from the first one who made the claim.
No, it's adopted from the people who know the apostles, who know
One
them.
person made that.
No, not one person, all of them.
Irenaeus, if I'm not mistaken, was the first person to attribute the names to these gospels and claim them to be divine.
And then Irenaeus is telling,
revelation.
but Irenaeus is telling you who before him was claiming these gospels, and you're getting these quotes right from these people who knew these guys. This is a chain of authorship here. Okay?
I'll let's leave that point aside because
Okay.
I don't have the textual evidence to say you're wrong or not on that.
Fair enough. But like what I'm saying is that to lay this out, we know what the gospels were, and they were historically accepted by the church. When it comes to the text of the Quran, there's these differences where the companions are fighting over what the Quran is.
No, they're not.
Yeah, even they beat up Uthman had Ibn Masud beat up
Show me.
because okay. Let me just show you that he disagreed with like the current reading, for example. So like for example, if you were to go to like chapter 92 verse 3 of the Quran, Ibn Masud had a different reading. So let me
And the prophets will have the companions will have different readings of the Quran based on the ahadith, just like there are those who disagreed on certain ahadith, having either not heard them or not validated themselves. Like you and I having this conversation now, the early Muslims were the same. And God bless their spirit and their pure hearts, they would not accept something unless it was verified by others. And once it was verified, they moved on from that point.
Okay. So let me go ahead and try to pull this up for us really quick. Right, here it is. Okay. So Sahih Bukhari 4944 narrated Ibrahim. The companions of Abdullah bin Masud came to Abu Darda, and before they arrived at his home, he looked for them and found them. Then he asked them, "Who among you can recite the Quran as Abdullah recites it?" They replied, "All of us." He asked, "Who among you knows it by heart?" They pointed at Alqamah. Then he asked Alqamah, "How did you hear Abdullah bin Masud reciting Surah Al-Layl?" Right, the night. Alqamah recited, "By the male and the female." Abu Darda said, "I testified that I heard the Prophet reciting it likewise, but these people want me to recite it, and by him who created male and female. But by Allah, I will not follow them." So what we see here is obviously there's a different reading, but it's the response to the different reading that shows that he's disagreeing with the other reading. You get what I'm saying?
You're reading it, but you're not reading for understanding in this hadith. I'll explain to you
break it down for
what you're missing in this hadith. Abu Darda is coming to who?
The people who follow Abdullah bin Masud.
Abdullah bin Masud is an acclaimed scholar.
Yes.
One of the highest scholars. So
Yes.
he's speaking to the students of Abdullah ibn Masud.
That's right.
And what he's doing is a very important principle in Islam. Go to the people of knowledge and verify.
Yes.
What Abu Darda is doing is going to the people of knowledge.
Yeah.
The people of knowledge are confirming his understanding of the Quran.
Yes.
Abu Darda is saying, I have other people with me who are disputing what you and I know to be true.
Yes.
We are the scholarly class.
Yes.
These people are differing with what we are saying.
Yes.
You and I know we are correct. I
Yes.
will not follow the uninformed. I will stick with what is the informed.
Right. I agree.
Yes.
So, but there's
So that speaks to the preservation of the Quran, because the memorization
but okay, but
corrects this, because he's saying,
Yusuf, there's a problem. I'm
Listen
listening.
what
Go
he's
ahead.
saying.
Go ahead.
Listen what he's saying. There's the end part. There are others here with me who have another reading.
Yeah.
I will not follow their and he doesn't name them in this.
Right. He doesn't name them, but
Right.
they're the mistaken group.
They're the mistaken group.
Yeah.
And he's going with the preserved reading and what he knows to be correct. And this is what the principles of a hadith is. Whatever is linked via a valid narration
Yeah.
and chain to the Prophet is what we follow. We don't follow people whom we don't know, who are anonymous, and who we cannot attribute their narrating back to the Prophet via a valid way.
Okay.
And this
I
is
hear.
what he
I
said.
understand everything that you just
Yes.
said. Now let me show you why this is a problem.
Tell me.
The problem is that when we're recognizing that other group
Yeah.
that Abu Darda was with
Yeah.
is the incorrect group, they're following the incorrect reading.
Yes.
That's the reading that exists in the Quran you read today.
No, it's not.
It is. If you look, hold on. Can you hear me? Look, it's in chapter 92, verse 3. In chapter 92, verse 3, it reads exactly how that Abu Darda said is how the incorrect group reads it. Okay, chapter 92, verse 3. Okay, almost there. I'm gonna need your help. Okay. So, verse 3, right? By the creation of the male and female, right? Or do you read Arabic, Yusuf?
I read Arabic,
Okay.
but I cannot translate from Arabic.
No worries.
You can read here.
Okay.
والليل إذا يغشى والنهار وما Yeah, and then there's the translation on here, by the creation of the male and female.
Right. So that's the one that Abu Darda said is wrong.
Listen, yeah.
Right. So he says, they said by the male and female, right? Abu Darda said, yeah, that's how the Prophet recited it. These people want me to recite it, and by him who created the male and the female, but by Allah I won't follow them. So the Quran we have today has the incorrect reading, while the preserved one was lost. You get what I'm saying?
Let's do something a bit. This is verse 1, verse 2, verse 3.
Get the corn. Are you not eating?
I just want the one verse. Yeah, Google Translate is also created the male and the female. What was the hadith number?
It's Sahih Bukhari 4944. Somebody taught on that?
Just give me one second.
One eternity later.
So what are you looking at now?
You see, you've got to look at this hadith in terms of its veracity. Now, what I'm seeing here is there's multiple hadiths being recorded by Bukhari in 4944, the one you showed me, by Muslim, and by Tirmidhi. The problem that we have is that all of these hadith are referring to different verses of that same surah. They're not referring to that verse that you mentioned. That's not the verse in 4944. So here in 4944, Abdullah ibn Masud comes to the companions. He asked them, Surah Al-Layl, Al-Qamar recited by the male and the female. Right? So it's the surah, the verse concerning the creation of the male and female, and it's whether it's by the male and female or by the creator of the male and female. In Abu Muslim, he comes and he asks them the same essential story is citing this verse, but here he's talking about when the night covers, so it's a different verse of the same surah, right? And it's not about the one, it's about when the night covers and the males and the females upon this is said, so it's about the covering, it's a different part of the surah. Then in Tirmidhi, same comes, it says, by the night as it envelops, so it's it's talking about the night, and it's not talking about the creator of the male and female.
Wait, can we look at this one real quick? Because both of them mentioned the chapter of the night.
Yeah.
Right.
But you can come, I can show you the verses.
Yeah.
Right, so it's talking about different verses of
night.
that same chapter.
I understand. Let me just read this really quick. This is interesting. So they pointed out to me and said, yes. He said, how did you hear Abdullah recite by the night as it envelops? He said, I heard him recite. Whatever that is.
Can you understand? So
Yeah.
you can hear the story is the same. This chapter of the Quran is the same.
Yeah.
But the compilers of the hadith are saying that the narrator, or the different narrators, because these are different hadith captured by different compilers, and the topic of disagreement, because he's still disagreeing with the people of Syria that he has with him, but he's come to the scholars of Abdullah to verify his reading, but he's talking about different verses of the same chapter.
Yeah.
And again, here's one by Imam Ahmed, and they point to me and said, did you hear Abdullah recite by the night as it envelops? So you've got 3 of the 4 hadith talking about the night enveloping and not the male and the female. So you can see it's about different parts of the surah.
Yeah. So will we say that Bukhari has an authentic hadith, or?
Look, the hadith is not going back to the Prophet. The hadith is going, and this is the art and the science of hadith. When you've got a hadith that is talking about a specific incident, so we can see this is the same incident. It's the same main person coming to the same secondary group of people, talking about the same issue, but the detail which matters here is slightly different.
Right.
Now, of the 4, actually 5 narrators, Bukhari is the only one that brings up the issue of the creator in the middle. The other ones are talking about another verse.
Yeah.
The night as it
envelops.
Right? And I'm not a hadith scholar, but what typically happens is that they look at all of the and that's why I said I wanted to look at the soundness of the hadith that Bukhari captured. Because even sometimes in the book of Bukhari, there's not always a sound hadith. Bukhari is a compiler. He tried to compile as sound as he could, but some hadith are still weak in his book. You look at all of the hadith from the different compilers, and you look at the strength of it, and you say, hey, based on the strengths of these, based on the chain of the narration, based on the validity that this one is talking about this topic, or these 3 are talking about this topic, and only one is talking about the other topic, then the topic must have, or the actual conversation must have been about this. So there's a process that they will go through to look at what is the. I'm not saying that's the case here, but I'm giving you some insight in terms of how critical scholarship looks at the hadith.
I understand what you're saying. Yeah, from what I've heard, I've never heard that it was a weak hadith.
I'm not saying it's a weak hadith.
Yeah, I know.
Right, because I don't have the chain of narration.
Right.
I'm not throwing Bukhari under the bus.
Okay.
But what I am showing you is that
there's different narrations of the story.
Hadith compilers, and you've got the references here. Ibn Hibban, this is 6330, and from Imam Ahmed, Imam Tirmidhi, and Imam Muslim, they all have a consensus on the topic being by the night when it envelops, and not by the creator, as you've highlighted in the verse in the Quran.
Okay,
so I would need to do some more scholarly work on this and come back to you.
Yeah, that's fair.
But what I'm seeing is there's 5 hadith collectors. 1 is referring to the topic, 4 are referring to the other verse. It may be that they're actually talking about the other verse.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Yeah, I'll definitely love to see what else you say. But yeah, my channel is GodLogic Apologetics. So my email or any of my contacts, if you have Instagram or whatever, you can message me on anything.
I'm on YouTube. I use
You're
YouTube.
YouTube?
I don't use any of the other social
Okay,
media,
So
I'll reach out
YouTube is
on
perfect. Yeah, for sure.
Give the folks on your channel time to speak as well.
I do.
You don't like what they have to say.
I do, Yusuf. I talk just like this.
You don't, dude.
Come on,
Dude,
man.
you gave me so much airtime.
Yes.
When people phone into your channel, you cut them off.
I only cut them off if they're wasting, if they're being dishonest. That's when I cut them off.
That's not true.
But I'm having a good conversation like this, an
Yeah.
intellectual dialogue. They can stay as long as they want.
And that's all I'm encouraging you. If you're having a channel to engage with Muslims, afford them the opportunity to.
I do. You too.
Have a good day. God bless.
You too,
And may He
man.
guide us.
This is